Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, where we discuss the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. It's December 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse sells AWS reference architectures that get you production ready in just 2 weeks. So if you're curious to learn more, just go to cloudposse.com. How can you maximize today's session? Well, first off, our format is informal. You can engage as much as you'd like, ask questions, and if you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. And for those on the recording, we do host these calls live, so you can register by just going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, cloudposse.com/officehours. I do have one ask. If you find any portion of today's session valuable, please share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse where you'll find the recording in just a few hours. So let's dig into this week's announcements here. Oh, too small. How about that? There we go. All right. So the first one, was just a minor one. I had not heard about Gel, but what I thought was more interesting about the announcement was that Vercel is broadening their horizons, and it looks like they're building in support for their PaaS with Python. So maybe doing JavaScript and TypeScript to Python, bringing that experience to Python with the acquihire of Gel. All right. All right, next one was introducing capabilities for EKS because Amazon got tired of calling them add-ons or something. I don't know. It's really confusing to me. I don't know what the relationship is between add-ons and capabilities, but screw that because these are really cool capabilities for many reasons. I think this combination of this trio of capabilities makes EKS a pretty beautiful option for deploying your apps on AWS. So Argo CD has obviously proven itself as a GitOps way of getting your apps deployed to Kubernetes. The problem is that you still have to deploy Argo CD when you get Kubernetes up, and there's this chicken and the egg scenario, and we've spent a lot of time over the years honing a solution for this, but I would much rather just have it native on EKS, so that's cool. Amazon AWS controllers for Kubernetes. This is that thing so that you can have a custom resource to provision native AWS resources. Like you can have a custom resource to create an RDS database. You can have a custom resource to create, an S3 bucket, an IAM role, etc. So ACK is makes just total sense that they would add that as part of this. And then lastly, the new feature we talked about recently, this is native now to Kubernetes, called the KRO, Kubernetes Resource Orchestrator. This is, you could say, a modern alternative to Helm or Customize. It lets you create a custom resource that under the hood represents a whole bunch of other resources that can be parameterized. What do I mean by that? Well, like, let's say you wanted to deploy, your application, and we'll call it Acme Corp. And then in Acme Corp, you have a deployment, you have a cron job, you have, some config maps, secret, something like that. You define all of those as different resource objects, and they're given a name like Acme Corp or Acme Service. So now Acme Service becomes like a resource in Kubernetes. It's super cool. So you can just provision that resource, and under the hood, it goes through and provisions all the other things in a Kubernetes native way. So this combination of these three services gives your Kubernetes cluster superpowers, and I think really finally delivers on the promise of Kubernetes for cloud native teams deploying their apps. The downside to all this, and let's see if it's in here, it was brought to my attention by someone else that I talked to, is I could understand that Amazon comes out with these capabilities to help you deploy things on the cluster, which helps you spend your resources on the cluster. I was not expecting them to charge separately for capabilities. So capabilities are priced on top of what you're already paying for your cluster. And that I don't know. Now, if that was going back into Argo CD as a CNCF project, I believe that'd be cool. But I wonder if it is. Thoughts on this?
It's worth noting that if you do run Argo CD yourself, you do generally, like at a certain scale, like small scale, it's pretty easy. Like anyone could do it in 5 minutes. But when you get to a few hundred apps, you definitely have to scale some of the control plane components. So if they're kind of doing
Hmm.
that for you, there's less of a headache there.
That's
Now,
interesting.
is it worth the price per app? I think it comes out to like $1 an app. I think that's debatable. But if you can kind of offload the problem to them, I think it may not be a bad idea. But we deal with that with our current customers because we're basically managing Argo CD as well for them. And
Hmm.
ones that have a few hundred apps, it's definitely it requires a little more tuning. And then once you figure it out, it's not so bad. But the once you get past a couple hundred apps, or if you just keep scaling up, that's another option. You give them more money on EC2, but I think you're going to end up paying for it either way, in either via EC2 or have them manage it and just pay them $1 an app, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. So,
Now, what I'm not sure about is if they charge you for the EC2 to run the Argo CD. I haven't played with this yet, but
well, I assume it's using the resources on the Kubernetes cluster, right? So I don't
I
think
looked
this is separate.
at managed offering, or is this
Oh,
running in?
really?
Oh,
No, I assume it's on the cluster itself. I don't think it's like it. I don't think it's like AWS managed Grafana, AWS managed Prometheus. I don't think it's like that.
Oh, in that case, you're kind of just double dipping there. So
They, they are double dipping. Yeah, yeah. So that was the kind of surprise. Okay, I confess I have not looked deeply. Maybe it doesn't chart double dip you, but I would assume it double dips you if it's running on the cluster.
wouldn't be surprised. I haven't kicked the tires on this yet. I thought the feature sounded pretty cool, especially if they're managing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if it becomes more of a black box and they just kind of
Mm-hmm.
take care of everything. But if they're charging you per resource in addition to the compute resources, then yeah, it seems like they're just double dipping there.
Yeah. Anyone know more about this in particular? All right. Another one, it's not really relevant maybe to the audience, but it is tangentially. So, as you know, Mitchell Hashimoto rode off into the sunset and now has his passion project writing Ghostty and documenting his journey. And, as a really experienced entrepreneur and open source engineer, he's built a huge following around Ghostty. Anyways, that's the loose connection. Somebody decided to create now an xterm.js alternative based on Ghostty, where they compiled Ghostty into WebAssembly and got it to run inside a browser. So sounds like a pretty cool future because xterm.js literally re-implemented a terminal emulator in JavaScript, which makes it relatively slow. But with Ghostty then being compiled as WebAssembly, it would be a really fast terminal emulator inside the terminal that also builds on all the tests and validation that go into Ghostty itself as a project. So I think this was also designed to be a drop-in replacement for xterm.js if you were using that. And also kind of cool was the Hacker News thread here. I always find it kind of cool when somebody goes off, builds something really awesome on something you've done, and you don't even know about it, and then you discover it, and kind of the genuine appreciation that comes out. So Mitchell Hashimoto responded to the thread with total amazement, like, "Wow, that's super cool! I had no idea you were working on this." So that was that. Anything to add to this? All right. Next one is Another interesting development, and I have a number of questions that I don't believe were answered in the post itself. But what this is you can now use Lambda as a serverless platform on instances that you control. So if your organization has requirements for certain, vulnerability scanning or certain background things to operate on an EC2 instance, you can do that now and have your Lambda workloads run on it. The questions that I have that I don't believe are answered here are, does this eliminate limitations on Lambdas, like the maximum size of your image? Because I control the EC2, can I now have a 20 or 30 gigabyte image, for example, and run my Lambda on that? Does this eliminate any timeouts for Lambdas? Can we have that Lambda now run as long as we want? I'd be curious if those are some of the limitations that are lifted by using a capacity provider of EC2 with Lambda. Anyone know more about this or have other insights? All right. I'll have to check in with Matt Gowie. I think he's at reInvent this week, so he'll probably. Next announcement was a minor one. EKS introduces provisioned control planes. If you're familiar with like EFS and how you can have provisioned IOPS, this is kind of like that, but for Kubernetes. So if you know you're going to be scaling like a madman on Kubernetes and you need to make sure your control plane has a certain availability, then you can provision it in advance. Good problems to have. So this next one, I had to dig into it a couple times before I fully grokked it, but I think it's pretty interesting in the end. So if you've been using the AWS CLI, you've probably been using the login functionality. So there's AWS SSO login, and that worked obviously with Identity Center and exclusively Identity Center. It gave you STS, the short-lived credentials, works well with everything. The problem is there's two other types of common access methods on AWS. One is your root credentials or your root account, and two is IAM users. Kind of similar, but different. Historically, since the beginning of time, in order to use either of those with the AWS CLI or AWS SDK, you had to have static credentials and hopefully an MFA token somewhere. Now, what has changed is there's a web flow, an OIDC web flow that you can use to get short-lived credentials for both root accounts and for IAM users, which means that you no longer need static credentials to use the SDK, the AWS SDK, for IAM users or root credentials. There's another thing that I've also learned a little bit more about recently as we are looking into implementing it with Atmos Auth. So as you know, Atmos is the tool we manage here at Cloud Posse, and one of the things we've added is a very modern auth flow to Atmos, and it supports SSO, Identity Center, OIDC, Azure. I forget what they call it in Azure, but it supports all those different auth methods. And what we have a PR, or we have a PR up for the PRD for a new capability, which is assume root, which is analogous to assume role. But this was something I just learned about, so I thought it's worth sharing. So as you know, they've been doing a lot of improvements to AWS, making it so you don't have to use root users anymore. For example, since the beginning of time at AWS, it used to be a best practice that you always, for example, reset the root account password for every account, add MFA, and then store that away and throw away the key basically, and don't use those again. That's no longer the best practice. The best practice now is just to disable root account login And instead, you can use this special assume root capability to access the root level access inside of an account. This is like organizational access role a little bit, but it's still different. This is you effectively get a root login to that account when you use assume root. Any questions on this? And this is the special thing, I guess.
With Atmos Auth, are these kind of things now you have to take a lot into account when these sort of updates and changes go through?
Yeah, on the one side, it's like, oh man, like now you guys decide to do that, but
Yeah.
still zero regrets. One of the beautiful things, like when you're using Atmos Auth and these things, is zero config. You set it up for your organization once, and it just works for everyone. Versus like the AWS CLI, everybody has to set up their AWS profile. There's no way for distributing that and so forth. So there's still a lot of value in it. And these things change like once in a decade. So I guess we just ran up against that decade mark here, and we have to update something in Atmos Auth to support it. So that's.
And if anything, it's already fresh in our minds. So it's easier, let's say, to get right.
Yeah. So that's true. So I do want to update Atmos Auth now to support the Webflow then for IAM users and root account users, so that it works with that. That would be cool. And then let's see here. Isaac shares a link. Read an interesting article of a potential phishing vector with the AWS login thing. Depends on your users making a silly mistake, but hey, it's happened before. Let's take a look at this link here. Isaac, do you want to summarize this for us? Are you able to unmute, or if not, we'll take a look.
It's really noisy here, so I don't know if you can hear me. But basically, the CLI flow has a way that will give you a link to get the code. And if someone, there's a GIF at the bottom that demonstrates the phishing flow. If someone follows that and copies and pastes, then they can get your token basically and all your credentials. Right there. Yep, that one.
All right, let's zoom in here and see what this is doing here. Got it. So a bad actor could put up a landing page that looks official or that looks AWS like, prompts them to sign in, and they would then come back and paste in that code. And then now that shady site has access to your AWS. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, so there is a command that is AWS login -- remote. So you can run that in the background and give the victim the URL link to verify their session. And when they click, it will take you to the legit AWS site, right? It's the real AWS login page. They will log in with that session, and then they'll get a code, and if they enter the code in the attacker site, they're good to go. Basically, there is no link between the browser session and the CLI that is requesting the credential. And so that is
really?
the path for the phishing. Again, it depends on your user making a silly mistake, but it's not impossible to envision.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing. That's relevant. When was this posted? This came out just this week, I assume then? Yeah. Or okay, a couple weeks ago. All right, next Next one was just a minor update on Atmos. We've been maintaining a changelog for the last few months. One of the things we just did was improve the overall look and feel with a timeline view, so it's easier to understand what changed in each version as you scroll through here. And lots of more goodness coming your way. We have a big PR on Atmos coming out this week, which will overhaul all the Atmos documentation. I'll review that next week. What's nice about that is we've gone through and documented every single section of the Atmos config, every single section of the stack configurations, every single section, every single command, and linking every command to every configuration section. All this stuff that you'd think would just be there, but yeah, when a project's been around for a while, it can kind of grow faster than the documentation itself, and we're trying to make good on that and fix that. All right, let's see, any other interesting links this week? That's the only thing I see in the Zoom chat, and that's all I got. Anything else from anyone?
Has anyone seen the various agents AWS has released?
They have like a whole repo of agents or something, don't they now?
Yeah. Right, but specifically for reInvent, they released a DevOps agent and a security agent.
No, I haven't yet. You want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so those are targeted, obviously, for people who do what we do. I pasted a link.
Opening it up here in the right window. Hold on. Introducing the AWS DevOps agent, frontier agent for operational excellence. So what I how is this agent accessed? Can it, I guess that's the gap I have, because also for this audience, we'd want that agent to work together with our Terraform agent, if you will, to resolve the actual issue.
Right, I haven't gotten around to playing with either of them yet, but the blog post I just linked has a better overview with screenshots for the DevOps agent. I was hoping that someone had played with them so that I could get your first thoughts.
Yeah, well, we'll probably have to do a post reInvent thing too and see who's nerd sniped to try some of these things out. Interesting. They're considering Cairo or Kiro a autonomous agent. I considered more an IDE with agents. Anyways,
well, that's the cool thing, though. They are adding an agent on top of it, on top of Kiro, and so the agent can do extra things beyond just being a cursor clone or something of that nature.
Oh, so then that is maybe more like what I envision, like the DevOps agent talking to the Kiro agent to make changes?
Possibly, yeah. I think the DevOps agent is more geared towards incident response. And right, then the Kiro agent, if you're using Kiro to do your Terraform, would be the one that would more interface with your infrastructure as code. And security agent is more focused on, security, MDR type stuff, investigations, etc.
That's pretty cool. Any other interesting reInvent announcements, Isaac?
I mean, the S3 objects thing was interesting.
What was the S3 objects announcement?
S3 bucket tags.
Yeah, I did not see that one directly.
It's
But that does
basically
remind me.
ABAC for S3. Previously, you
Oh, okay.
needed to have every object be tagged. There was no way to do ABAC. I posted a link in
Mm,
the chat based on the bucket, but now you can.
Attribute-based access control for S3. Okay, cool. All right. In other news, MinIO has killed entirely their open source project. So if you're using MinIO, I mean, the writing's been on the wall. They've been slowly chipping away at the product. I think even removing features from MinIO. MinIO is the self-hosted AGPL alternative for S3. Now they're back putting 100% of their effort just into their commercial offering. Was it?
Thankfully, there's Garage and Seaweed FS for replacement.
So so Garage I saw was mentioned there. I had not actually heard of Garage. Are you using anything like that,
I'm using
Zoe?
Seaweed FS at my home
Mm-hmm.
setup, just so I have a S3 like
Mm-hmm.
setup.
Yeah.
Were those drop-in replacements, or did you have to refactor your CAD?
I just had to repoint it to the URL, and it, like with Terraform, it just dropped in, just point the URL to S3 state, and it works.
Cool.
Are you using Seaweed FS as your state backend for Terraform?
Yep.
Interesting.
There is also an announcement. I don't know how true this is. It's going to be interesting. But HashiCorp and AWS is saying that they will have launch day support for services in Terraform. So that
But
has
have
historically been an issue.
But they've been doing that. I believe like every recent announcement has come with Terraform provider support, especially as AWS has taken over a lot of the management of the AWS provider. Are they, I guess, just making that more public or committing to it more?
Probably.
Okay. What was the thing that I recently just saw related to that? Yeah, Express mode. Did we talk about that last week on office hours? I can't remember. ECS Express mode Terraform. This was something they had also just recently announced, and there was a Terraform resource already for it merged in. I don't know if the release has been cut yet.
Yeah, I played
Yeah.
around with that in Terraform. It's pretty nice for
You
quick and
already played
dirty.
around? You already played
Yeah,
around with it,
well, it's
Joe?
really easy.
Yeah.
It's just one resource and you just throw things in there. I haven't tried mixing it with other ECS strategies though.
Mhm.
But I guess everything's there if you wanted to take the load balancer out of it and move it to something else. Probably disruptive to do stuff like that, but I would imagine you're using ECS Express on things that you don't mind some disruption because you just don't have as much control.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, and don't forget you have to update your AWS provider to use this guy before anybody in here is like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, let me try it." That
Yeah.
might dissuade you.
So it was released in v6.23 of the AWS provider. All right. Anything else interesting? Oh yeah, I saw your link there, Rashad. Actually, I saw that earlier. I was debating whether or not to bring it up. We used to use Bun at Cloud Posse with like our marketing site, which is Next.js. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And today there's a 0-day like severity 10 CVE for Next.js. So make sure you upgrade your Next.js if you're using that. But Anthropic decided, hey, we use Bun. We might as well just buy them. And yeah, so Anthropic bought Bun. The rationale is, well, we have this product, using Node, the cloud agent. We might as well just own the whole ecosystem. I don't know. I'm making that up, but I guess that's good for Bun if it needs the financial support and backing of a bigger company like Anthropic. We ended up having to back.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's the main point. Reading through this entire thing, it looks like Bun as a company was not making any money. They had a lot of VC investment, and they needed essentially a bailout. It seemed like, and so Anthropic was like, "Yeah, we're using your code base for all our stuff. Sure, why not?" And they threw them some money. But if the code does stay open source, I mean, I'm down for it. Um, it's maybe the rare case where it's an open source product that is supported, by somebody who is making money, and they can just kind of give this as a freebie to whoever wants to use it. Meanwhile, they're doing whatever they need to do with it, So I'm down for it. I just thought that this was a very interesting read. If you read this thing top to bottom, if you have some time, it's pretty interesting to see the flow of how they started, and how they landed on Anthropic being the supporter.
Okay, yeah, I'll do a deeper read then, given that. Cool.
It's definitely interesting because at many points throughout, the author just straight up admits that they have all these millions in seed funds, but no real runway of like where to go with it. What's the revenue generation model? There's never a plan for how do we make it make money. It was just, we'll just make it better and better and overall. And this kind of helps them out, this acquisition. They kind of get to skip that chapter altogether. So they're no longer just a small VC-backed thing. They suddenly have access to, I guess, one of the world's best AI labs and to do their thing, which that must be pretty nice.
Right. And that's why it's not out of the question for a company like Anthropic to adopt a project like this, if you will, because the engineering resources is probably quite nominal, given their access to cloud code.
And to their credit, the author also says that I think Anthropic were one of the first guys to reach out, but once they had that offer on the table, they decided to approach a whole bunch of other AI companies. And throughout the whole process, they just said, yeah, no, Anthropic's deal was just, it made the most sense for us. And, all right, maybe there is something to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. This is the point in the show where we ask Michael Jenkins, what's new?
Yeah, this was the newest thing that I had. I got nothing. I've been as I've been working today, I've been streaming some of the reInvent talks. I was hoping Matt would join to see how his bus ride from LA to Vegas went. I haven't seen anything on that yet, so I have to follow up with him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I saw a picture on LinkedIn where he was dressed up in the jumpsuit. I'm sure we'll get an update next week when he's back. Cool. Rishav, anything new with you?
Not infra related, unfortunately. I know we chatted a lot about ECS and Amazon's approach to containerized workloads. Right now, my project is all over Nomad. So Nomad jobs, Nomad task groups.
Wow.
And one of the things that I'm trying to do is I've kind of inherited something that's been long running for a while, bunch of jobs, bunch of tasks. It would be nice to have a little dashboard of what kind of resource utilization are we doing? Like there is 100 jobs. Are they all using as much as they're allocated? Is it too much, too little? Can we right-size them? And I thought it would be easy. If anything, I almost expected there to be a dashboard UI for this. Failing that, all right, let me just, I don't know, ask any of the numerous AI tools to write me a little script.
Exactly right.
And even then, well, first of all, as is always the case, some of the CLI flags just don't work or they're hallucinated. So the first one that it fell over on was, hey, Nomad jobs -JSON. Turns out you can only query one job at a time for JSON. If you want a whole ton of jobs, you have to figure out a different way. So it's like these little nitty-gritty things that make you realize, yeah, it's got a ways to go. It's got a little bit further before it kind of really just builds what you need when you need it. But yeah, that's been my current thing of how do we figure out how to right size a big old containerized workload when it spans many, many jobs.
That makes me think of I was going to try and pull it up here quickly, what somebody else was sharing. They were using Atmos on a large project to refactor a Terraform, and as
Ooh.
part of that, they created their own like um, application and dashboard to show the progress, and it looks really slick. And it's just this one-off thing that you would never do if you actually had to write it. But now with Cloud Code, you can just have it to whip up anything rather
Right.
than. It was really nice though. Where was it? It was somewhere in sweetops.
And it's one of those
Cool.
things that was exactly the same thing here as well. We were only doing it for one big project, but we want to make this generic as possible. We want to try this on any old container, any old cluster. Just give it the Nomad authentication environment variables, and you're good to go. The dream
So
is the goal.
how are you liking Nomad?
Pretty good. I have to admit, I think Nomad is one of those things which I've used quite a while just for home lab purposes. It's there, it gets the work done. My home lab isn't a Google scale just yet. I don't need like Kubernetes clusters. And Nomad's just about easy enough to work out, handle, restart, schedule. Gets the job done for me. And it's nice that we get to use it at work as well. Now you get to make use of more of the HashiCorp suite. But there is every now and then you just run into weirdnesses. For example, lack of dashboards for things you would think would be obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing's easy.
Eric, we see your screen.
Yeah. I know. This is just going to be my MFA token. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but thank you.
Quick, fetches cookies.
Today's winning numbers, right?
There are today's winning numbers. All right. So this was the dashboard. It's a little bit blurry here, I guess, but this was that somebody did. They whipped this up just to help with their refactoring effort to track what has been moved into components and whatnot. Thought there was a higher resolution. I mentioned that though.
That's so good. That's so impressive.
Yeah, that's much clearer. There we go.
That is well beyond what I'm targeting. At this point, my scope is just if I can get the data into a markdown table, I'll be happy. That's it.
Yeah. This would be pretty slick. I'd like this. Since Atmos is basically a data model for your architecture, I think it'd be pretty cool to have something like this. But, yeah, I'm sure you could, like you said, whip up a dashboard that shows you your utilization and right sizing and recommendations pretty quickly. Michael, I see you have your hands up.
Yeah, I was just kind of piggybacking on what Rashad was talking about and kind of like this demo too, and what you're saying as far as like using AI to whip up stuff. So over the weekend, I've been wanting to mess around with Go. So I was like, okay, let me work on a Go project. And so I built a little workspace manager, not even a manager, it's a workspace monitor, right? So the problem is I work on multiple computers and I usually have a workspace where I have a bunch of repositories checked out. And I wanted to have a way to, on that system, just kind of enumerate all the projects that are there. But then I also wanted to have a web interface where, anywhere I could just pull up this interface and say, okay, on this computer, what do I have checked out? On this computer, what do I have checked out? Do those repos have any changes in them?
Okay.
So if I want to blow those repos away, then I know I might be losing changes, that type of thing. So, and then on top of that, I wanted to work with TUIs. And so I was using Cursor actually to write most of the code. So I don't know how much Go I actually learned, to be honest, because it was writing a lot of the code. But I did like get a one-off project that it's got a nice TUI for it. It scans workspace directories, it caches the results, and then it has a TUI that I can kind of browse browse each directory inside the workspace and look at the get metadata. And maybe this weekend I'll work on the web service that basically writes the cache up to a DynamoDB database or whatever, and has a little web front end, maybe something like this that just shows the computer name and the workspace and the directories, how much space, if their files are checked out, or the repository is not up to date, or whatever the case is.
So take a step back for me. Is this because you have like a lot of different work laptops or something as a contractor, or?
Well, I've got. I'll let you finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, how is it that you have these things sprawled out across these systems?
Yeah, so I've got multiple systems that I work with, multiple laptops. Yeah, laptop is like my main daily driver, but then I've also got smaller laptops. Like say if I'm traveling, I'll have a smaller laptop that I use on a plane, because I know like my MacBook Pro 17-inch kind of sucks if you're sitting behind somebody and they let their seat back, right? So I've got a smaller laptop that I can use on planes. And I imagine like if I know what I have checked out on that laptop compared to my main laptop, then I know I have to sync something. And then I've got like a backup laptop that I rarely use, but same scenario. If I kind of run this workspace scanner and it says, hey, these are the projects that you've got checked out, and kind of push that to the cloud, then I can compare that to something else. So I'll know like, hey, this project's already checked out. I just got to pull the code before I go off network or something like that. It's just kind of like a one-off problem that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know how applicable it is to other folks, but it's something that I've always wanted. And I just figured, okay, I'll learn Go, I'll learn TUIs, and learn some like back end, front end type stuff, storing data, and just touching a lot of different technologies and services for a weekend project. That's all it was.
I think that's what's so cool though, is that using Cloud Code Cursor, you can really scratch all those itches, all those things you always wanted to do but never had the time to write. You can just write it now.
Yeah, no doubt. It probably would take me a better part of a week to knock out the code that I did in better part of 2 days. And even when I say 2 days, it's like maybe 4 hours total. Like 2 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday, and I've got the MVP, for the command line portion all ready to go.
Yeah. All right. Any other interesting topics for discussion today? Elvis shared some links there using Grafana for your Nomad nodes. It could be an interesting solution for shop. Let's see here. Andy shared a link here. Let me open that up. Introducing database savings plans for AWS databases. Yeah, that's I'm surprised the AWS savings plans didn't already cover databases. I assume they would have.
Yeah, people have been asking for it for 6 years. They finally got around to it.
Yeah, well, that's it's obviously one of the most expensive things in your account, probably. So that is it. Like Michael says, RDS prints money for them. Probably not as much as AI, but
It was interesting. It includes a bunch of other services too, like Elasticache, DynamoDB, DocumentDB, stuff like that, which I wasn't expecting.
The whole class of database, NoSQL, document storage. Any other reInvent announcements that caught your attention? You can now store 50 terabyte files on S3. Was it terabyte or gigabyte?
One item that I saw streamed today, I think it was the CEO of Vercel, and they were talking about V0 and how that it now has what they're calling self-driving infrastructure, which I mean, I took that as kind of funny. I said it's Waymo for infrastructure or something like that. I don't know. But basically, you give it the code and it supposedly builds out the infrastructure for you.
I totally missed this announcement. That's cool. I really like that. I would say it's like Lovable, but by Vercel.
hmm Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, I could see it for a lot of applications. But again, and maybe just as me and my bias of having been hands-on with the metal, close to the metal, it's like, no, I want a little bit more control over how things are deployed and maybe, specify things. Because what I didn't see is how much exposure you get to actually what's deployed. Um, like size of the database, if it's, database associated, if it's running on a instance, the size of the instance, that type of thing. And I mean, I might want a little bit
I,
more access to that stuff as opposed to just kind of leaving it to the whim of the
I'm
agent.
just reading between the lines here and also knowing, I believe, how Lovable works. I'm guessing, I mean, they want this because this is how they print money for Vercel, right? The more apps you deploy to the Vercel platform, the more, you pay in compute, etc. And Vercel has always been, Git native, like integrated with GitHub and so forth. So I have to imagine this will integrate with a GitHub repository, and then it's behind the scenes. It's probably using Next.js to build out an
Mhm.
app. Next.js being the Vercel framework. Yeah, sync with a repo, so you get full control. And then behind the scenes, they also partner with Neon, which was also recently acquired by Databricks. But Neon is a really awesome serverless database that speaks the Postgres wire protocol
Yeah.
and lets you branch, right, and do all that. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing this. I want to
Yeah.
try
I'm
that
trying to
out.
find the specific article if I can. I found like the speaker page, but I can't really find it was the keynote from today. I just got the title. I just put in the chat, but that's not the specific announcement.
Uh, join Swami, VP of Agentic AI, and Guillermo, Vercel CEO, to explore how agentic AI will transform how we live and work. Okay. Did they have a keynote today?
Yeah, that was earlier today.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, basically, Swami was talking about all of the AWS AI changes, and then he brought on customers and some other AI or AWS employees to talk about the work that they're doing with AWS AI, either using it as a
Oh, got it.
platform or
Got
the
it.
way that they are, improving it or releasing things or whatever the case is.
Yeah. All right. All right. Keep sharing what other cool stuff. Oh yeah, EKS backups were announced. I think we had talked about that last week. There used to only be basically Valero, right? Now you can use AWS backups with EKS. But that said, I don't know. I would run EKS clusters more or less as disposable. All right. Any last thoughts here or links that caught your attention?
Not links or anything like that, but I do have a question for everyone here.
Go for it.
Um, so I'm right now being asked to set up a new org, control tower org, and all that, which no problem. But last time I did it was many years ago with the account factory for Terraform. What is everyone using nowadays for it?
Yeah, I'll give the people a chance to answer before I'll dive in, of course. So yeah, account factories for Terraform is still kind of the AWS recommended way of doing it with Terraform. Not my recommended way. It's interesting. Amazon has put their full weight behind Control Tower as the best practice for how to do everything, but I feel like the technology that runs it is, I guess, it's geared for enterprise. And what does enterprise do? Like ops, everything. And that's what it is. So what we do is we use Terraform to manage the everything on AWS, including the organization, the OU, the service control policies, the accounts, the identity center, etc. And we couldn't do that if we didn't manage everything from the ground up with Terraform. So it's basically a re-implementation of Control Tower in native Terraform.
Okay. Do you have any modules on that in your repo?
Oh yeah, for sure. Obviously,
Okay,
so
awesome.
everything we do at Cloud Posse is public. So, but full disclosure, we are working on a second major rewrite of our components for this. So what does this today is count the AWS account. The AWS account component. What we are going to rewrite it though is as two components, one for OUs and one for accounts. So they're decoupled in their life cycle. But yeah, the search here is not very good, I guess. Let me just go to this directly. But what this does is it gives you the ability to provision everything through Terraform. So your organizational units, so provisioning organization, then your organizational units. So create an organizational unit called core, and then create these accounts inside of the core, and then create an organizational unit called plat, create these accounts underneath plat. And then you can also provision these service control policies as well for those. They don't have to be a URL. They could be a local file. In this example, we point to a remote file.
Okay, cool.
But pretty straightforward to do it that way. But then, there's other things that you want to do, like Security Hub, GuardDuty, AWS config, Security Hub, etc. And those are separate root modules we provide.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And a shameless plug. I'd be remiss if I didn't go here. We offer a turnkey solution for all of this as a quick start. Complete AWS organization, Kubernetes clusters, ECS, your network architecture, IAM architecture, SSO architecture, everything as Terraform based entirely on open source. And that's one of our core offerings.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we are at time for today, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. We'll be posting a recording of this session to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/cloudposse. If you are ever interested in support, we provide commercial support on our entire open source ecosystem, much like Red Hat does for Red Hat. We do it for Cloud Posse. We have a number of ways you can get involved in our community. Register for our live weekly office hours at cloudposse.com/officehours, our YouTube channel where we have a recording of all our office hours sessions, as well as our Slack community at cloudposse.com/Slack. With that said, thanks all for your time, and we'll be back next week. See ya.
Hope you feel better, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
I feel like a wreck right now.
He said as bad as I do. Feel better.
Thank you.